welcome to day 2 of my Halloween Spooktacular. Today I'm going to be using the Lawn Fawn stamp set that I've shown here to create some translucent ghosts. So I could have used the dies for this, but I decided instead to use the stamps and to stamp it out on some post-it paper. This is those full-size sticky post-its, which are really great for quick and easy masking paper. And I've stamped that down, and I'm just going to pick up a few sheets of the masking paper and then cut those out with my scissors. And I'm also going to cut off the little arms. So I really wanted a ghost shape, but I didn't want my ghosts to have arms, and I could have just drawn this, but I'm a little bit hopeless, so I decided to use my stamp instead and to cut those out. So now I've got some Tim Holtz watercolour paper, and I'm working on the smooth side, and I'm just blending on some Distress ink. So the first colour that I'm using is Spiced Pumpkin, and this is one of the newer colours that came out last year, and this second colour here, Wilted Violet, is also one of the newer colours that came out in 2016. So I didn't have a mini sponge dauber that I'd already used for this colour, so you can see I'm inking it up really well and just dabbing the ink off to one side. So this will really help when you're trying to get a nice smooth blend with a brand new ink blending tool. So you kind of want to keep those ink blending tools to a colour family or to each individual Distress ink, as the more ink they absorb, the more used they get, the easier it is to get a nice smooth blend. So I've switched now to Seedless Preserve. You'll notice that this is one of the larger ink pads. There's no difference between the ink in the large and the smaller ink pads. The larger size is the original size, and they now have the mini ink cubes, and if I hadn't already have bought so many of the large ones, I think I would try and get the complete collection in the small cubes, because they're just really cute, they're easy to store, and they're nice to have on your work desk and use. They just sort of fit really nicely. But yeah, I already have a load of the larger ones, so I'm not going to rebuy everything just so they're all the same size. So I finished that off with some chipped sapphire, and then I dried the whole panel. So you'll find with Distress ink, even though it may feel dry to the touch, it takes quite a while for it to actually dry, and you won't be able to stick down your masking paper until that sheet of cardstock is completely dried. So I'm just working through now, and I'm placing down all of my ghosts. I want them to be more concentrated towards the bottom of the card and sort of fade out towards the top. So I spent quite a lot of time thinking about the science of the translucent properties of these ghosts. I wanted to make sure I had some colour down on my cardstock first of all, and then I wanted to mask off all of the ghosts and just go back with those same colours again, just applying another layer of Distress ink to darken everywhere up apart from where the masked ghosts are. And then what I'll do after I've gone back with those colours and darkened everything up is I'll start to peel off some of those masks, and you'll see that there's a slightly lighter or a translucent image of a ghost left behind. So I was trying to work out in my head sort of, would it be lighter or would it be darker where the ghosts overlap each other, and I got myself sort of all confused and worked up over exactly what shade of exactly how translucent each of these areas would be. And then I figured, do you know what, I'm being a little bit daft. As long as you can see the difference between each of the ghost outlines, I'm happy. So maybe I got it a little bit wrong, maybe I got it right, who knows. But I started to peel up some of those ghosts, and you can see that you're left with quite a nice outline there. Now anywhere where the ghosts overlap, I made sure that I put the mask back down before applying just a little bit of extra colour, and this makes sure that you end up seeing the exact shape where the ghosts overlap. So you can see there with those two ghosts in the middle that you can see the tail of the ghost towards the top, sort of poking through the next ghost, and that pattern sort of repeats with each of the ghosts where they overlap. So I'm just working this through, lifting off some of the masks, maybe darkening some of them up in some areas, applying a little bit of extra Distress ink anywhere where they overlap, and then going back with the mask to make sure you can see the curve of each of those ghosts. So at this point I'm really happy with how my ghosts look, and I decided to add some faces. So all of these faces are from the same Lawn Fawn stamp set, and I'll make sure to have all of the links below to the supplies that I've used, and I'm stamping those down with a grey Distress ink. So I end up ruining this a little bit later on, and I have to go back with some black ink, but for the time being I'm working my way through and stamping down each of those faces. So once I've got that all in place, I'm going to add my sentiment, which is a Happy Halloween sentiment. And I'm just using my MISTI to line that up and make sure I can get perfect positioning when I stamp that down. So, I mentioned a minute ago that I kind of ruined the faces on those ghosts. It's been a while since I've made any cards. I took a bit of a break while I moved house, and I think for a moment I sort of forgot that Distress ink reacts with water or with moisture. So I was looking at my card after I stamped down the sentiment, and I was really pleased with how it looked, and I thought maybe it needed just a little something extra, and I had the genius idea of using my Wink of Stella glitter pen to add some glitter to the ghosts. Anybody else that's made this same mistake will know that that beautiful, smooth ink blending that I've done is about to be ruined. So this step here, I'm just ink blending the edges of the cardstock, and this is where I'm thinking, what else should I add? I'm going to stick this down on my note card. It just needs a little something extra, and I brought out the Wink of Stella pen. So the moisture in that Wink of Stella made the Distress ink start to move again, and it created brush strokes in each of my ghosts. So instead of this beautiful smooth ink blending, I've got sort of almost like a watercolor effect, which is great. It's one of the really useful properties of Distress inks, is that they react with water, and there's loads of great things that you can do with that, but it wasn't exactly the look that I was going for. So I did one of those ghosts, and I thought, there's no way I can cover this up. In for a penny, in for a pound, I'm just going to have to do them all. So I worked my way through going over each of those ghosts, and the Distress ink that I'd used to stamp the faces started to bleed and to blend out, so those details of the faces were lost. But that's okay, as I say, I went back and I fixed that with some of my Onyx Black ink. This is a waterproof ink, which is lucky because as I'd started to get that watercolour effect on my card, I figured I might as well just go for it and really sort of amp up the watercolour look. So you'll see in a minute, once I've got all those faces re-stamped, I then come back with my Distress spray bottle, and I apply some water droplets on the top of the card. So what will happen with those water droplets is the Distress ink will sort of push away and move, and it will leave behind water droplet patterns, and it sort of ends up looking like perhaps I've watercoloured this whole piece. As I say, it's not exactly the look I was going for, but I'd come this far with the card. I didn't want to have to throw it out and start again, so I decided I'd make my mistake work, or at least I hope I made it work. That's what I tried to do. And yeah, just went all in on the watercolour effect, and added those water droplets for some distressed texture in that background. Overall, I'm pretty happy with how the card turned out. Maybe I'll go back at some point and recreate the card that I meant to make. However, I still think it's a really great card and somebody would be happy to receive it. So I'm essentially finished for this video. Again, if you have enjoyed it, please do give me a thumbs up. If you have a similar experience of making a really rookie mistake on a card, please do let me know in the comments section below. And make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss day 3. And I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.